Jer si milostivi čovekoljubi Bog i tebi slavu uznosimo, Otcu i Sinu i Svetome Duhu, sada i u vekove vekova.
In a world of shadows and secrets untold, where primeval stories make the brave go cold, mighty gods on high and realms below, whispers of legends that shape each soul. And nightmarish dreams, cryptids lurking, nothing's as it seems, giants walking, angels and demons fight, only truth can bring the light. Through the echoes of time, the tales unfold, mysteries arise as the prophecies are foretold, from valiant knights to buried treasure. This podcast brings nothing but pleasure. Welcome to mysteries of Majesty. Study with us, and don't be a travesty. Theology, mythology, fantasy, and horror. Dungeons and dragons, Skyrim and Mordor. And Mordor, powers haunt the evening, in gothic castles where they're screaming. Wizards cast spells in their towers tonight, exploiting enigmas hidden from our sight. Archaeologists make excavations deep on the ancient tombs where pharaohs sleep. In the dust of ages we chronicles keep, storytelling's power of monsters that creep. Mysteries and Majesty is the place for you to learn about this haunted space. From scholarship to manuscripts of old, unlock the secrets of wisdom and gold. And Mordor, and Mordor, and Mordor, and Mordor.
Well, today is a bad day for all the atheists and skeptics who disbelieve not only in God, but in heaven and hell. If you're in Midwest and you open your door or windows, you'll get sense of hell. So that's it. Case closed. Welcome to episode 163. We'll be joining some forces with our brothers from the podcast Faith Unaltered. I'm so pleased and so honored to do an episode again with Josh, who's been on the channel thankfully several times, and with Tyler, who's been at the very beginning once more than 2 years, and now he's back. So we'll be talking about this very interesting topic. The whole episode I plan to be very interesting, very smooth, very casual, yet also very biblical and very serious on the other hand. We'll start by Tyler reintroducing himself to the audience, saying who he is and what led him to join us when it comes to this topic.
Well, Nico, I appreciate you having me on, sir. It's been a while, and it's good to be back. But no, we got to talking. Josh and I got to talking about a lot of things over the past couple of months, and the idea had came up about possibly reaching out to you and talking about a collab episode. And it was great because of the themes that you guys talk about on this show. I had just released my own personal experience with what I would call the paranormal, trying to figure it out. And so I asked you guys, hey, what do you think about this? We got to talking. Nico, you invited me on to share my experience, and so here I am, and and I'm super excited to be here. So I appreciate it, brother.
Thank you so much. Josh, it's been a while since you and I did an episode on Screwtape Letters, so it's probably been a year since you came in the channel. So if you can please reintroduce yourself to the audience, that would be good.
Yeah, my name is Josh Davidson, and I am one of the co-hosts on Faith Unaltered and one of the main hosts of the Cosmic Corner segment on Faith Unaltered. And I have been a fan and supporter of this show since it began, and was blessed to come on here quite a few times with Nico before. and just excited and overall blessed to be able to collaborate in any way. So I was always on board with trying to come on and give you guys some love and have a good conversation with Nico and especially St. Sean, because you can't help but be sanctified by a beard like that.
That's right.
So I'm just I'm blessed to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much. I know that the audience watches Sean and me every Friday, so we don't need special reintroduction, except that this S is for Serb. Obviously, it's nothing else. So yeah, maybe we can start, Tyler, with your recent supernatural cryptid experience, and I'm going to share the AI image that you made so the audience can correlate your story to the to the picture you made.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I just recently started talking about this publicly at the time that this happened. So this wasn't necessarily a recent experience. I just began talking about it recently because at that time, if you said the wrong thing or started talking about a little bit weird and started describing stuff like you see on the TV, you could be locked up in the crazy bin, and I wasn't trying to do that. And so, but I've been thinking about this story and this just experience for a while. And so the first thing that I would like to do personally is just say that this is a quote unquote real experience that I had. This is not a creepypasta. I have been writing creepypastas recently and different short stories and things like that. And as a matter of fact, Josh, Sean, you're actually helping me on a project that we're going to get started here very, very soon. But but this is different than that. And so I just wanted to kind of clear the air. No, I'm not making this up. This really happened to me. And not only did it happen to me, it happened to two other people at the same time who were with me that night. And so after posting this on Reddit, the idea was to actually reach back out to the guys who were with me, my cousins, and to see, without leading them or anything like that, what they saw and see how their stories kind of lined up with my own. I've never thought about doing that before because it never occurred to me that, okay, well, maybe they did see something different. I just assumed since we were all there. So I reached out to one of my cousins, and he's gotten back with me. And so it's just trying to find a time to line up our schedules. He lives in Florida now, and to line up our schedules so we can be able to connect and actually I can talk to him about it. But he has messaged me back, and so I'm just waiting on him to get back with me. I've sent him some questions, and we'll see where it goes. But no, so this happened one night after work. We were all working at the same place here in our little town, and we were doing some overtime. Normally, we work second shift, and what would happen is sometimes we would get an offer to work overtime, and that would be until about 3 o'clock in the morning. So our regular shift was from 3 o'clock in the afternoon until 11 o'clock p.m. And then we would get that, 4 hours of overtime. And so this was one of those nights. It was an overnight night or an overtime night. And we were all, and it was spontaneous. And so I bring that up to talk about something that people have recommended on Reddit that maybe this was. I think if it was what people are recommending, that would be a lot creepier than any paranormal experience. But I'll get into that here in just a second. So anyway, we were all at work, and then we had gotten off. We went to the gas station together like we normally did, and none of us were tired. We were probably, and I guess I should say this happened probably somewhere around, I'm going to say 2008, 2009. I know it was before I moved to Florida, and I moved to Florida in July of 2008. So I'm going to say 2007, 2008, somewhere around in there. But anyway, so we got off work one night, and we decided spontaneously, this wasn't something that was planned. This wasn't something that was, thought out from beforehand. We literally got off work, went to the gas station, was like, hey, bro, I'm not tired. I'm not tired either. Y'all want to go do something? This is how this idea to go to this place even came up. And so we didn't let anybody know we were going out there except for us three. And, it was just a chill session. I keep emphasizing we got off work because we were not under the influence of anything at the time. We had just gotten to this place. whenever this experience happened. But anyway, so we decided to go to the spot that we all knew. It was this old bridge that people did go and hang out there, so people knew about it. It wasn't like a secret spot for just us three, but it was so far out in the middle of nowhere that you would have already had to been back there, you know what I mean, to before we got there to set up all of this stuff. And it's just I don't believe this was another person trying to mess with us. I'll put it like that, right? So anyway, we get out there and we just get there. We get out of the car. We go hang out on this bridge and discuss, hey, what do you want to do? And so he's like, okay, well, let's go take off, see what's going on up this way. And then so we started walking. We didn't get 5-10 foot maybe. And all of a sudden we just stopped dead in our tracks. All it seemed like, thinking back on it, it seemed like all three of us kind of stopped at the same time and just froze. And what I saw was basically what you're seeing on your screen now. It wasn't hunched over like that. It wasn't bent down. It was standing on 2 feet. It was super, super skinny. And with the lighting of the moon being out that night, you could see this dark humanoid shape that what I've described as and how I described it on Reddit was darker than dark, right? Darker than the dark that was out that night. So in pitch blackness, this thing stood out. You could see it. It was weird. Almost the effect of like, I've seen some people describe it as a black hole that kind of absorbs light. It's that kind of dark. So anyway, Chat GPT got great. So I had Chat GPT generate this image, and it's pretty dead on. The only thing that I would say, it was probably a little bit skinnier than this, but it had what I thought was like matted or like stringy fur, I guess. I don't know how to describe it. Other than that, it looked like hair that stood out. You could kind of see like some of the edges on it, how it dangles like that on the image. But the thing that stood out to me the most was those blue eyes, bright blue eyes. And it stood there. So it didn't give off this predatory vibe. It didn't give off this, hey, I'm going to hurt you. It didn't growl. It didn't make a sound, nothing. And so looking back on it, right, and after my cousins and I have kind of talked about this, you know, on our way back from this experience driving home, we're thinking at that time Bigfoot, you know, something to that effect. Because back in 2008, you don't hear of skinwalkers, or at least I didn't anyway. It didn't get around to our neck of the woods until later on. But you didn't hear skinwalkers, you didn't hear the rake. That kind of stuff was just starting to get popular on the internet at that time. And so anyway, we're thinking, you know, old school Bigfoot, like maybe juvenile. But the thing was, it didn't seem like that, right? It didn't, like I said, it didn't give off this predatory vibe. We wasn't afraid. There wasn't like a sense of peace or dread or anything like that. It was more like curiosity. It looked at us. We were looking at it. And at the time, it seems like we were all thinking, what are you doing here? You know, it was kind of like that. Well, anyway, so it stood there for a brief second, and all of a sudden, then it started walking across the road. Like I said, 2 feet, slow, methodically, like it had intent to get to the other side. It did not come at us or anything like that. It didn't lunge. It wasn't trying to scare us. Nothing like that. None of us, we just stood there and watched it, and it watched us, and it walked into so if you picture, you've got a woods on one side, a gravel road, and then a woods on the other. And then to our right at the time, it would have been that bridge, and then the rock road leads up through the woods on the other side, the left-hand side. And it walks across from one side of the woods across the gravel road to the other side of the woods, and it disappears into the woods at that point. And so when I say disappear, I don't mean like it dematerialized or it just like went away like a ghost, like a vapor. This thing was solid. It made noise. We heard leaves crunching whenever we walk, or whenever it walked, or grass. Like, we heard it walking. And that was it. Once we snapped kind of back into reality, I looked at my cousin. I won't say his name because he hasn't given me permission to post this publicly yet, or talk about him specifically. But I asked him, I said, "Did you see that?" I remember those words coming out of my mouth. "Did you see that?" They said, "Yep." And that kind of snapped me back into reality, so to say. And as soon as he said, "Yeah," it's like all three of us simultaneously ran back to our car and hauled butt out of there, right? And so now fast forward to this year, and actually a few weeks ago. So I posted this story on Reddit, and a lot of people are giving me a lot of different things that this thing could be, right? Stickmen, anything from stickmen to Bigfoot, basically. Shadow people, yada yada yada. My cousin got back with me, and he said that the thing that stood out to him the most, he said, "I'll never forget," was those bright blue eyes. Now, I've sent him a whole list of other questions. That's the only thing he's answered so far. But that verifies to me that at least we saw, and at least we're talking about the same thing at this point. And so I can't wait to get more details from him about what he specifically remembers. Like I said, I'm going to try not to lead him into confirming what I saw, but I just want to hear what he saw. And then if I can get a hold of my other cousin, who hopefully is around still, that would be great. I haven't talked to him forever, and I haven't even seen him on social media. So I'm going to try to reach out to him to get that other verification. But another thing that I've also done, Nico, is ask people around where I live, "Hey, have you seen anything similar?" And I think this is kind of what got this going a little bit more than it originally was. People are starting to actually talk about this now, is because multiple people now from my neck of the woods have came to me and said, "Tyler, we saw something similar." And so I don't think that this was a manifestation, unless we're all here in our little redneck town experiencing mass delusion that's happening over a period of what now? That happened to me in 2007, 2008. It's 2025 now, so we're all still experiencing this mass delusion. I don't think that's the case. I think some people are seeing something, and I would love to really figure out what that is. So I'm reaching out to people like you, Nico, to Sean, just to see, and to people around, my hometown. What do you guys think this could be? So I would love to hear from your audience. Like I said, I've heard people say stickmen. I've heard people say, "Oh, it was just some guy messing with you." And that's what I was going to say earlier. That's why I kind of brought up, I don't think this was another person, because again, we didn't let anybody know we were out there. We wasn't partying. It was just a simple hangout session after work between three buddies that came about simultaneously, right? And yeah, so if it was somebody out there, I've even got somebody said it was maybe the military training with night vision goggles. Maybe, but I don't think so. Just because of that. Or the way that I described that. But yeah, no, I'm curious to see what you guys have to say about this, and that's really the only personal, paranormal experience I've had. I haven't had anything happen since then. I haven't had anything, connected to this per se. It just really tripped me out, at the time, and I still think about it, like I said, to this day. And yeah, I'm more curious than anything about it. So I don't think it was like a satanic thing. I mean, maybe, but I don't know. So I'm kind of at that point now of investigating, trying to see what other people have seen, if it's similar, and I can say it's very similar to what other people are describing that they've saw. And yeah, it just excites me to really talk about this again and to relive this experience, talking about it and hearing what other people have to say about it. And so at this point, I'm rambling. But if you guys have any questions for me about, what I saw, I'd be more than happy to take them from you guys or your audience. So, or our audience, because we're streaming on Faith Unaltered too. So
So I have a couple of questions, and then if Sean want to go first and try to decipher it, that's fine. I can go second. The first question I have is: have you managed to decipher, at least assume how tall would be the entity? Because the stickman is usually displayed with longer extremities than what we see here that AI did, especially with way longer arms. So do you think it was over 6 foot? And do you think that it really had that long arms? And is, we can find those, images on Google, how he's usually portrayed.
Right. So this thing was shorter than us. So at that time, unless if I've grown a couple inches since then, maybe, but I'm 6'3" right now. So 2008, I was 18. So yeah, I'm gonna say anywhere between this thing was 5 foot 10, 5 foot, 11, 6 foot, somewhere around in there. Because whenever it was the furthest it was away from us until it walked and disappeared into the woods, I'm gonna say was no more than 20 feet. I mean, this thing was close. And from what we could tell, from what I could tell anyway, it was roughly the same height, but a little shorter, I would say. So
and it had extremely long arms, correct?
Yeah. So not the arms wasn't necessarily disproportionate to its body. It was just super skinny. So I wouldn't say like it had like, unproportionate like long arms like that, right? It was just super, super skinny. That's the detail that really sticks in my mind.
Okay, Sean, do you want to go first with trying to discern?
Yeah, so on my end, I'm having some technical issues and I can't actually see the image. So, but I think you've explained it pretty well. And I'm kind of struggling to try to find a place where there's an intersection between, like heavy body hair. Like you said at one point, you think that some of it was matted, piercing blue eyes, and it being very slender. I know we can kind of have a category for each of those, but it's really odd to find them all together. I don't think that I've encountered a category of being that fits the description of all three of those. So a question I would have to you to see if maybe this is a probable answer for you is, do you think that, and I'll start by qualifying like this, because I happen to believe this, that there are places in time where there seems to be like a bridging happening between two different realities. And there are almost like windows where we can see things that are maybe not native to this place.
Like a thin spot, like between where the veil's a little bit thinner.
Yes.
In some places. Yeah. I sent you that picture on Messenger, by the way, Sean.
Oh, sweet.
So,
thank you.
Yeah. You should have it now.
Yeah, actually yesterday, not yesterday, on Friday on Faith Unaltered, we were doing an episode about hiddenness and revelation and the symbolism of veils. And Courtney had mentioned how one of the things that comes out if you're reading the Old Testament, you kind of notice that it seems like there are spots where God seems to congregate some of his presence and glory thicker in some places, or perhaps the veil that separates us from him is thinner in those places. So it's almost like a dual question: is the activity thicker or is the space thinner?
Right. It usually too in those cases, it seems like the answer is both, right? Like normally where the veil is thinner, it seems like the activity is thicker by default, right?
Or at least our ability to notice it. Yeah.
Right. So I think Sean said he was having some difficulty. I didn't mean to throw him off by sending him that picture. Maybe he's just like, oh my God. It was like,
no, he just wanted to check the photo on Facebook. But Troy, I was also wondering back then, were you serving God? Were you maybe involved in anything occultic or New Age-ish or anything like that?
Yeah, so that's actually a really good question because we get that a lot. And so, were you guys high? Were you guys drunk? Look, we didn't have time to do anything. We had literally just gotten there. And so like from the time we arrived to the time we experienced this thing, I would say it was no more than 15 minutes. I didn't put a time in the Reddit post just because, if somebody wants to know, like they can ask about that. That may be a key detail I'll add here in a little bit, like in an update or whatever. But from what I remember, and I really want to verify this too with the guys if I can, is that, 15, what would you guys say it was by the time we got out there to the time we saw it? Now, to expand on that a little bit. So in the moment, in that moment, no, we were sober, right? We were not high. We were not drunk, nothing like that. We had not been doing drugs at work. Again, remember, we had just gotten off work. We're all three welders, and you can't do that. I mean, I guess you could, theoretically, but no. And this was back in 2008. So I had not gotten into the drugs like I did later on whenever I moved to Florida. I smoked maybe a little bit of weed back then, not that night or anything like that, and not regularly at that time either. And so I was not, under the influence of anything. Number one, because I was driving, and number two, because I had just not gotten into that. That wasn't a stage of my life yet. As far as occult stuff goes, no, not actively. I would say that worldly, I was definitely worldly. No, I was not serving God at the time. At that time, it was more of a in my head. So whenever I say this, I'm not talking as a Christian now or like a theologian now. I'm talking reflecting back where I was at that time. Me and God were on two different terms, right? I said, you know what? You do your thing, I'll do mine. I believed in God. And so what I mean by that is I believed that God existed. I just wasn't serving him at the time. I would later on describe my experience. I don't think I was here yet with God, but it was getting there for sure. But I ended up hating God. While I was in Florida, I ran as far away as I could. And I've shared my testimony on Faith Unaltered and on other platforms about that. And so if you want to check that out, feel free. But no, this was kind of a in-between stage, which is very interesting to me. And I'm sure Josh has got bells ringing off in his ears right now whenever I say that. But this was like an in-between stage for me. I was getting ready to move to Florida at the time. I didn't know that. This is hindsight's 2020, right? But I was getting ready to move to Florida. A lot of things were about to change for me at this time. And yeah, I think that had a lot to do with this experience. If it was spiritual, if it wasn't a material, entity like a cryptid or something like that, that might have had something to do with it. But long answer short, Nico, no, I was not heavily involved in anything like occultic, no Ouija boards, no seances, no trying to contact the dead or anything like that. I began getting interested in that kind of stuff, specifically astral projection. That was later on. Now, I knew about that kind of stuff. I just wasn't into it. I was just, either in high school still or getting ready to graduate high school. And yeah, I was just, 17, 18-year-old kid trying to have fun. So, no, this wasn't spiritual or satanic, I don't think. But anyway.
Okay. Sean, we interrupted you for like 5 minutes. Do you feel okay now continuing?
Yeah, I just have a question. Tyler, have you looked up a photo of like a swamp hag?
This is the first time I ever heard that word. So no, I have not.
Okay,
let me, and I will. Yeah.
Google that real quick and see how you think that measures up.
Is it one word or two?
2 words.
Okay, swamp hag. So the picture I'm seeing, that's interesting. Super long tongue. It's got like a lot of skulls on its chest. Is that right, Sean?
The one I'm looking at is if you just go into Google, I think it's like the third photo in, and it's long hair. Has a spear in one hand.
Oh, okay, the one that's hunched over there.
Yep.
I'll say this, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe. Yeah, possibly, because I'm looking at my picture. I'm looking at that, and it's very. Oh, what's that? What was that? Labyrinth. It's very labyrinth-like, right? And so yeah. I've never heard of this before, but I will do more research into what this is, because because I'm looking at the pictures, it basically looks like a witch, right? Like a witch that's been out in the woods for a while. Okay. Right.
But I don't think, like, the lore on them, I don't think that they're considered to be like human. I think they're more, like troll or something that's humanoid, but not really human. It doesn't belong to our world. And I think the swamp kind of symbolizes that it more belongs to the darker things in nature than to what we have, and really associated with, like New Orleans and that area, like Bayou kind of stuff. But and I know that you were quite some distance from that, but still.
Yeah, no, that's very. So the two things that I'll say that I think, and now to add a third one with Swamp Hag, the three big recommendations that have been given to me. So number one, I don't think it was a stick man, because of the way the stick men are described, as no details. It's literally like you draw a stick man. No, this thing had detail. It was 3D. It was not, flat or transparent or like a shadow person. So I eliminate shadow person. I eliminate definitely stick man. But the three, I think, closest things it could have possibly been, and if you want to include like a Wendigo as a fourth possibility, maybe, but would be Bigfoot. Dogman has came up a lot because of Michigan being so close to Indiana. The Michigan Dogman has came up a lot, and then a rake. So rakes were just starting to become popular around that time. But whenever you look at images, it's got the skinniness, it's got like the slenderness, like that. I'm sure you guys have seen it, but there was a fallen angel, quote unquote, video that came out long time ago. That, Sean, is what I would say is like Swamp Haggy, kind of like, right? That seemed very Swamp Haggy at that point. Just looking at their pictures, that fallen angel type thing. But yeah, this thing was kind of a mix between, I would say, Dogman, Bigfoot, and then if you want to throw Swamp Hag in there. Yeah, like I said, chat got super, super close with the picture that I sent you and the picture that's shown on screen now. The only difference I would say is that it was a little bit skinnier than that. So the disproportionateness of it, I would say, was how skinny it was. So that's why I tried to, I want to say Bigfoot, but at the same time, that's the thing that leads me away from it, because you think Bigfoot tall, 6 to 8 foot, beefy, it's like Hulk-like, right? This thing was not that at all. So juvenile, maybe, but chat really got close to the picture. So, but no, that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, in my understanding, like a 6 foot Bigfoot would be like 400 pounds. Like, right. They're just absolutely huge and jacked. Dogman, probably a little bit more slender, but still, I mean, they're going to be ripped, right? Like you can, and their skin is so thin that you can see the musculature through their skin in almost every situation. Plus, they have the backwards legs. And so that's something that you would notice. The rake, one thing that I love about the rake is, like, I remember when it came out as a creepypasta, and it was, I mean, that was within our lifetime. I mean, it wasn't, that long ago. And yet you have people who have legitimate experiences with rakes. And so then that makes you question, what is the relationship between the creepypasta and our own reality? Like, what role does our subconscious have in manifesting our reality around us? And that's kind of creepy.
Yeah, and see the thing about it is too, with that being said, like, and this is why I tend to go back and not think it was a person just out there trying to screw with us, is because it didn't try to scare us, right? It wasn't like there was no threat at that time. We snapped back into reality and ran to the car after it had already left. You know what I mean? So it itself didn't threaten us. It didn't, again, growl. It wasn't curious, like it didn't walk right up to us and be like, what are you guys doing here? Right. And you would think if it was a person or some military personnel out there training, which by the way, we're not close to any military bases, Crane, but that's still an hour and a half away. So I don't think it was that, right? But you would think if it was a person out there trying to screw us, they would have been like either one, hey, rar, right? Like chase us or whatever. Or if it was like a hunter or someone out there night hunting with like camera or night vision goggles or whatever, right? They would have came up to us and said something, hey boys, what are you doing out here? Or, you know, like, I'm trying to hunt and you guys are screwing it up. Trust me, if somebody comes on your property hunting and screws up your hunt in Indiana, you're going to know about it. You know what I mean? Because you're going to go tell them, hey, get out, right? This was public property. So we were in a portion of what we call state forest around here. I mean, it is the state forest, but it has a more technical name. I forget it off the top of my head. I guess Indiana State Forest. But it's very, very Sugar Ridge. For those who are close to Indiana that know where I'm talking about, is Sugar Ridge is a huge, huge section of land set off, you know, and for public hunting and target practice and access and DNR ran and things like that. And so that's where we were. We were at Sugar Ridge, and that's where we saw this thing. But yeah, so possibility of the human aspect of it, maybe. But like I said, without telling anybody, unless my cousins had texted someone and they somehow got out there before we did, I don't know, and got set up just to freak us out, that would scare me more. If I found out that's really what happened, that would freak me out more than any kind of paranormal encounter. Because number one, what the heck are you doing out there? How did you know we were going to be out there? Right. And do you do this all the time? Like, do you live out here? Like, just so many questions would come to my mind to ask that person. Like, bro, do you need help? You know what I mean? But no, it didn't come up to us. It didn't try to scare us. And it wasn't like, hey, you guys are ruining my hunt. It didn't say anything. It just acknowledged we existed by looking at us. And it walked slow, deliberately, right? It didn't run away from us, but it walked into the woods, and we heard it, you know, go into the woods, and then we didn't hear from it again. So
something that might even be scarier yet, going the human route, is feral humans, right? Like, and we know they're out there, especially in state preserves and stuff. We know they're out there. People who just disconnected from civilization, and they went out there maybe a couple generations ago. These people have never seen another person. They don't interact with people, and you know, they may be cannibalistic. So that might be the scariest option of all.
Right. Josh sent me a picture of the swamp hag, and looking at this picture, it looks like, you know, so if I was to go back and describe this thing, you know, back then, and looking at like this, there's a lot of like smoothness on this. And that was the thing that stood out to me. That's why I took a little bit to generate this image, because chat kept making it smooth. And I was like, no, it's got to have hair all over its body. Right. And so so it looks like, I wish I could show you guys this picture. Josh, if you want to throw this up on the screen, the picture that you sent me, that would be helpful to show people what I'm talking
screen
about.
Share it.
Do what? Yeah. Just
screen share it.
Yeah. On here.
Okay.
But there's a lot of like, so the picture that Josh sent me, it's like almost looks like moss or like seaweed kind of draped over this thing, but you can tell the smoothness of it. Yes, there it is. So that is very close. There wasn't any hunch on the back. That's a detail that I'm noticing in a lot of these pictures, is that these swamp hags are like hunchbacked or whatever. This thing wasn't that. But then again, I wasn't sitting there trying to interview it either, you know, and get all the details about it and sketch out. All right, now hold your position. Let me draw you out. No, it was quick. I would say the whole experience lasted, man, 15 to 30 seconds. You know, time seems to go super slow whenever it's in the moment. And now trying to think back on it so long ago, you know, obviously things are probably going to be a little bit wrong here or there. That's why I want to get what my other cousins saw and try to collab those things together just to see, you know, what the truth of this experience was. But the thing that stands out to me that separates what I saw from what this picture shows is that this whole thing was covered in hair. It didn't have a little bit here, a little bit there. But that right there is very, very close. Throw some hair on it, you know, and take out the hunchback, and that's very close.
Okay, so the witness is mine. I was waiting to say that line for a while.
That's good.
Okay. Okay, so Sean and I cover so many weird stories. Some of these are with cryptids, some of these are way different stuff. It took us 2 Fridays and about 5 hours to analyze this book. It's called Phantom Armies of the Night, and the subtitle is The Wild Hunt and the Ghostly Processions of the Undead. And I can post the book title later in the for people interested to buy. But we have 2 lengthy episodes about this book. Why am I mentioning? Because people in the medieval Europe, a number of people in different countries, witnessed a lot of supernatural stuff. They don't have. They did have worldview. They did have different names for these entities, and you know, things that would appear in front of them, entities. So one of the common things was the Wild Hunt, and we know if you're a fan of RPG video games like I am, you know, The Witcher 3 subtitle is The Wild Hunt. It's like my favorite video game of all times. So a lot of lore in the video game and in the novels originates from the lore in Eastern Europe. However, it's not just Eastern Europe; it also has to do with Western Europe. Not all the cryptids, not all the spirits, not all the ghosts that would appear to people, not just in medieval Europe, but even nowadays, the stories that we cover, Sean and I, would harm people or would be threatening. Why? Well, we can have different hypotheses and assume why. I would say that one of the things is, first, does the entity that you just happen to enter their territory, can it feel that you're a threat to them or maybe to the territory? Because if we take the divine council worldview, and if God had divided the whole planet according to the number of suns, 70, to the 70 regions, yes, many of them fell. That's not the point. The point is, Sean and I again discussed this in number of episodes we did. What if also there are these entities of less power and less dominion that could be over this forest, over this mountain? And we're not talking about those small G gods that will be covering the whole region or the whole nation. We are talking about smaller places. What if God placed entities like this that would be in a way neutral? So I'm trying to be biblical as much as I can, even though it's a very vague and difficult situation. Like, I'm not mentioning this is stickman. I'm going to stay away from names of the entities because I'm not trying to understand the name. I'm trying to understand the nature and the attributes of this entity, right? Mm-hmm. So what if God, in his mercy and wisdom to protect people, to protect also nature, his creation, in the same fashion as he would put gods over certain nations, but Israel under his wings, what if he put certain entities whose names we don't know? We don't know necessarily their attributes and characters. We don't know, but they could be neutral, obeying God and protecting certain location by being under his, dominion, obeying God and just minding their business. If they pass by you and see you're not hurting anyone, they would leave you alone. My second theory would be, well, could it be that something you did in your life would summon such an entity, and you said you didn't do that, which is very good. I know people, especially one guy who told me that in the underground of one building, he witnessed a sudden rush of cold air. And this is one of the most basic character traits one of the most basic signs that there could be demonic presence if the atmosphere suddenly gets cold. And I'll talk about it very soon. So I went to that place because I was very curious. This was when I was starting the channel, Mysteries and Majesty. And by the way, if you're not subscribed, please do. So I went there to explore by myself. I took a phone, I took a flashlight, and I went and I didn't notice anything. So I think it also has to do with like, what are your intentions? And are you serving God or not? I didn't go there to tempt God. So like, oh God, look how brave I am. And if something happens to me, rescue me. I was genuinely curious and I didn't have this, I don't know, idea to show off or to brag or something. I'm like, yeah, I just want to see what's happening. I didn't hear or see anything, and thank God for that.
Mhm.
But this guy did, and he also witnessed something in a hotel where back in the Al Capone times, people were massively killed. So whoever goes to that hotel here in Chicago, many people witness that there's something creepy happening to this day in this Chicago hotel room. So this guy experienced in multiple locations, he experienced the demonic.
Mhm.
So what I'm saying is that if you didn't cause this by being involved into something supernatural, demonic, and you didn't praise God, then I'm thinking, well, what would be the best worldview? Again, with the same thing with this book. So many people witnessed back then seeing these things, and they would see the army of dead marching on horses. Some of them would be walking, some of them flying. Sometimes they would feel fear, but many times they would just feel like these entities are just marching, not even minding business, and minding someone else's business and trying to hurt people. They would see people, they would notice, but they would continue marching. But this will be an ongoing process. Sometimes it will happen more often, sometimes less often. So why is this happening? Why are two dimensions, why are two realities merging into one? We don't know exactly. But again, I'm going back to one of the most probable reasons is that there are some guardians, just like there those guardians of nations that God bestowed. We know this from the Bible. Well, could it be that God bestowed lesser entities over mountains, forests, different lands throughout the globe, not just in America? Of course, it is possible.
Yeah.
I can't quote one verse, but I'm just going with what was given to us and saying, well, yeah, it makes sense. It's not impossible. So why the reason why I believe this was a spiritual entity is because of the glowing eyes. I don't believe this was something merely natural. Now, again, as Sean and I covered this in so many stories, certain spiritual entities, they have power and ability to materialize. And we'll soon talk, not soon, a little bit later, by the end of the episode, we can cover several pages from this book, The Demonologist, where Ed and Lorraine Warren and Sean and I did a number of topics from this book as well, including Annabelle, the Cursed Doll, the Amityville Horror, and all the true elements of these stories. The enemy has the power to use your fear, to use your anger, to use your negative emotions, as well as your temperature, your body temperature, and the room atmosphere to draw the energy. So this is why then it gets suddenly cold for people who are witnessing the demonic. Yeah. And then it has power to materialize. But this didn't happen in your experience. In your experience, you already saw a full-blown entity shown to you visibly. So you didn't see a spirit. You saw something manifested in flesh. But we don't know if that entity later on disappears, I won't say in thin air, but becomes a spirit and then appears again at their own will, or maybe based on when they can draw the energy from the atmosphere or something else, some other source of energy, and show to others. Maybe to you it was peaceful because, hey, you didn't do anything bad. You're just sitting there with cousins, with friends. But maybe to someone else, it will be more like mean or threatening if they're trying to do something harmful to people or maybe to the forest. Yeah. So these are my thoughts that I'm trying to use both by combining the scriptures and so many stories from books and from other real lifetime witness accounts that Sean and I compiled over the time. Yeah. I don't know if you want to comment on that, and then Josh can go.
Yeah. So what you're saying, Nico, is very interesting, and this is another reason why I'm trying to reach out to both of my cousins, because even though I wasn't necessarily into the occult or anything like that, I don't know if they were or not, right? And so maybe that had something to do with it. And so that's why I'm trying to reach out to them and see, hey, So where were you guys at this time of your life? Like, I think I know about where they were. And one would be more likely to do that stuff than the other. But that's why I want to really sit down and talk with them and just see, hey, where were you guys at in life? Just to try to eliminate things. And I do have plans to go back to where we were, just to observe, kind of like what you were saying, Nico, is like, I don't want to go out there to test God or anything like that. But I would love to see, especially because other people around Pike County have reached out to me and said, hey, I've seen something similar. I would love to be able to really nail down if this is a natural experience or if it is a supernatural experience. Is this thing flesh and blood, or is this thing spiritual, or can it manifest as both? Like, if so, then I would call that spiritual, definitely spiritual. But yeah, so what you're saying makes a lot of sense, and I definitely want to hear what Sean has to say about that too. So Sean, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with what Nico was saying about there being guardians of certain places and being established and installed by God to protect certain places. And even if we assume that these things are good, the way that they would perceive us is, you were our boss and you were made in the image and the glory of God, and you fell and you took all of creation, all the things that I am given dominion over to protect, and you caused it to fall. And so now you are not my friend. You're the cause of all of the death and suffering in this world. And so I think that even if we assume that these guardians are very good, that doesn't mean that they're going to be beneficent to men. Right. Because we are, in many ways, we are the traitors to the created order.
Yeah.
And so I like that idea. I like your idea of just going out to observe. I think that is probably the safest way to interact, is just observe, see what's happening. But, there's a saying, you can never jump in the same river twice. Mm-hmm. And so whatever was happening, if this was an intersection of realities, whatever was happening at that time, that can never be recreated. Right. So, you can go there and maybe there is something special about the place, but maybe it wasn't necessarily the place. It was the convergence of so many variables all at once that brought in this alignment between these two realities. And then once that falls away, it won't come back in the same place.
Yeah, you and I were talking about that. It's kind of like the ingredients to a storm, right? It's, if one of those ingredients aren't there, the thing doesn't happen, the storm doesn't develop. And so you're right, maybe the combination of whatever night it was, the full moon, all three of us being out there, I know something happened that we were all supposed to see, right? Whatever that means, that is what I'm trying to figure out, right? And so it would be great to be able to separate this natural, supernatural. But the thing I want to let people know, and the thing that I am really, attempting to seek at this point, look, I just want to know if there's something going on around our neck of the woods. You hear stories about things like this. You hear, different, like if you ask older people who have been here for a while, like I had never heard of the Pike County, big blue-eyed thing, right? Like, and so to see that, and not only for me to experience that, for another person, my cousin specifically, who messaged me back and said, quote, "I'll never forget those blue eyes," right? It's like, okay. Then you got other people messaging me and saying, "Hey, I didn't see the blue eyes. I saw white eyes, but I saw bipedal, super skinny." And then another person comes back and says, "Oh, I saw something similar, but it was crawling across the road." Okay, that tells me something, whether it's spiritual or natural, right? That tells me something's going on here. So I don't want to go out there and try to create something. I don't want to try to, bring up something that's not supposed to be there, right? I just want to observe, man, and see what in the world is going on in Pike County, Indiana. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think going out and getting other people's testimonies and comparing them is probably the best way that you can do research for understanding what this thing was. Because, like I said, the ability to recreate the events is, I mean, even if it is something natural, it's obviously something that not everyone sees all the time. So even if sightings are frequent, I mean, sightings are frequent for Bigfoot, but we still have yet to capture one. So I think even if sightings are frequent, it's not a guaranteed thing that just going out there you're going to be able to get any evidence that it's there.
Right.
So maybe getting all these stories together, and maybe even the peripheral data around the stories is like the time of day and what the weather was like, and these things. Maybe those will be better indicators that will help you to understand when you're going to be most likely to see this thing.
Right. Right on.
Okay, Josh, you want to comment on this, and then we can play some testimonies by two friends who sent to us regarding their creepy experiences.
You're muted, brother.
I'm muted. I should know better. Jeez, look at me. Anyway, I was going to say one of the things that was mentioned in the side chat that we never got back to was actually Lisa was asking if Tyler had noticed any prominence of smell or sense data while you were looking at it that you can remember, or that came back to you after, other than the glowing blue eyes and the general thinness and hair, like matted hairiness. Was there any other sense data that you can remember, like a smell, or maybe like if you because I think I remember you saying that you weren't necessarily nervous,
Right.
or like you didn't feel like that weird negative energy, spooky kind of thing going on with it, right? It seemed mostly like it was just something, right? Was there any smell that accompanied that that you can remember?
Yeah, no, that's a good question, because whenever you hear like Bigfoot stories specifically, you hear like dead, rotting smell, right? Something that stands out that you've never smelt before. It's just foul, right? No, there was no smell that I remember at all. As far as sense data goes, so what's interesting is a girl that reached out to me had said that whenever she experienced whatever she experienced, that there was like this static feel, almost like electricity in the air whenever she saw it, and whenever it ran away, apparently this thing whatever she saw ran away. She said that static disappeared, like it went with it. Right now, I'm not saying these two things are the same. I'm not saying they're different. I don't know what they are, right? But for our experience personally, I did not feel that. I don't remember feeling that anyway. Like I said, the thing that stood out to me just with sense data is the disproportionate skinniness of it, right? And those piercing the eyes. So my sensory data was more visual than anything else. But as far as like a smell, there was no rotting odor that you get with the normal Bigfoot, sightings or anything like that. And there was no feeling of static discharge, like the way this other person described what she felt. So for me, no, it was more visual. And then I guess sound wise too, because we heard it walking. That's another thing that stood out, but it wasn't like prevalent, right? The prevalent thing was the blue eyes. That's what I remember. That's what my cousin, he said he remembers, the most. That's the thing he commented on. Anyway, the very first thing he commented on was those blue eyes. But as far as a smell, or like it didn't touch us, so there wasn't that. So we couldn't tell, by that if it was physical. I think hearing it walking, validates for me that it was a physical entity, and not like something that's, manifesting or manifested, like, like a ghost, right? Like something that glides across. No, this thing walked and it was physical because we heard it. So.
Cool. Okay, I'm gonna share the first testimony of two friends that videotaped and shared with me. The first one is from our friend Dane. It's almost 6 minutes long.
I had this supernatural experience in Sedona. Arizona. And it was pretty weird. I've had a few experiences like this in the past, but not exactly like this. And this was very alien-like or UFO-esque. Being in Sedona, of course, that's the dark sky community. There's the Bradshaw Ranch near there, which is similar to Skinwalker Ranch. And so there are a lot of weird stuff out there going on out there. Anyways, I was at my Airbnb and I was getting ready for bed, and I was laying down kind of with my eyes closed, half asleep. And I noticed, you know how when you can see a light through your eyelids, even though, you know, your eyes are shut. So I saw this really bright green light, and I'm like, oh, I'm just noticing it, not thinking too much about it. And then all of a sudden it grows into this human shape, not really totally human shape, but just like a long sort of pillar of light that was kind of leaning over. And I had more the impression that it was human, not human, but more the impression that it was a being of some kind. And so anyways, I noticed that and was still just curious. And then it's like I woke up a little bit and I noticed it more, and I noticed that I noticed it. And as soon as that happened, like the whole room flooded with this really, really bright green light. And my eyes are still closed during this whole period. So it's like when a bright light shines and you can see through your eyelids that light, and it kind of comes out as normally like a warm sort of peachy or red kind of light because it's shining through your skin of your eyelids. And but it was green. It was a really, really bright green. And so then it startled me. I got startled by that, and I opened my eyes and nothing was there. It did feel kind of weird in the room though. And I closed my eyes again and it was just normal black. But I felt really weird. And then I started hearing voices coming through the white noise. So on my phone, I have a white noise machine to help me sleep. But it wasn't just coming from that. It was coming from other areas of the house. And it was almost like if you've ever watched Ghost Hunters, where they have the spirit box. And the spirit box, you will hear voices, kind of one word or two words or a short phrase kind of coming through the white noise of the box. It was like that. There was female voices and male voices coming through, and it was a little freaky. It was different from normally if you use a white noise machine, you can kind of, your brain, I think, kind of picks up or creates patterns in the white noise as normal. It was different than that. It was more obvious. It was more, I was really hearing these voices with my ears. Granted, it could have been someone outside or whatever, but I didn't see anybody outside. It was really, really dark. I was staying in a remote area in Sedona. There were other houses around, very, very dark out there and quiet, almost too dark to even walk around or drive around without headlights. So I don't think there were anybody outside, but also voices did carry. It was kind of in a canyon, and voices did carry out there. So it certainly could have been neighbors or something, but it was odd. And it did kind of sound, it kind of had a staticky quality to it, like when you hear voices over a CB radio or those spirit boxes that you hear in a Ghost Hunters show. So I couldn't get to sleep for a while. I definitely was freaked out. And then the next night I also couldn't get to sleep and I was freaked out, but nothing happened the second night. The reason this is strange and interesting is because I've never experienced anything like with that green light, anything like alien-like. It's always been shadow people. It's always been strange feelings or things that have happened, objects that have moved or something, but it's never been an alien-like situation like that seems to be with the green light, which is mainly why it's alien-ish or alien-like. Anyhow, yeah, that's my experience. It was definitely real. It was definitely something, you know, I've experienced a few paranormal things in my life and definitely felt the same as far as it was hard to explain. It was kind of on the periphery of consciousness because I was half asleep. But as have other experiences been on the periphery of my conscience, but it's because I was attending to something else. My attention was directed elsewhere. And the paranormal event happened, say, in the periphery of my vision, or kind of where I wasn't necessarily paying attention. But it was real. It happened. It was weird enough that I still remember it. And it was weird enough that night that I still remember it and noticed it was definitely different. It wasn't just me dreaming or coming up with something. It definitely happened. So anyways, that's my Sedona story. Pretty crazy. Never experienced anything like that before. And that's it. Thanks for having me on, Nico.
Okay, Sean, you want to go first? And then I can speak my mind.
Yeah, I mean, experiencing UFO activity in Sedona. I mean, that's pretty vanilla for Sedona, right? Like that's kind of what happens. That's like finding cultists at Joshua Tree or something like that. I mean, it's that's what you would expect to find there. But that is very interesting. The experience, the light that he saw. I mean, I'm not one who believes that aliens are a thing, because I just don't believe it's physically possible to have somebody, travel the distance of even the closest habitable planet to us. So I think that it's probably something that is in the spiritual realm, whether it be angelic or demonic. If it's not being harmful or tormenting, I would assume that it would be angelic, but then typically they would come with a message. This sounded more tormenting, like the idea was to induce fear, especially with the noise of the garbled speech coming from different places in the house. I would be interested to maybe probe and see, in the places where it was coming from, were there appliances or anything that spirit would be able to manipulate to create some sort of vibratory noise, or how close they were to any outlets? Because energy is energy, and the spirit world can totally manipulate that. So that's just some of my thoughts on that. What do you got, Nico?
Well, first I want to say that this is Dane. He's our brother in Christ. So that I would assume most likely that after the first experience with that green light, that he most probably prayed and rebuked it, right? Because he didn't come back, thank God. Second thing, he told me days ago, when this first happened, he shared it with me like the same day or the following day. Well, he was still there in Utah. He told me, hey, this is not that far from the Skinwalker Ranch. I'm like, wow, like, dang it, like that whole area is like insane. And again, Sean and I and Ben, the pastor, covered in great details that episode. It was like 2.5 hours on the Skinwalker Ranch. Are these, events and what people are experiencing on the Skinwalker Ranch, how much true they are and how much could they be faked? So we spent really a lot of time dissecting so many details from the documentary and also from people's stories. So he wasn't that far from that region. So I'm thinking if the whole region is messed up when it comes to witchcraft, when it comes to summoning demons, when it comes to the occult, then no wonder this is spreading out. Because again, let's remind ourselves that the fallen beings, the more you feed them, the more you give them power, the more you speak to them, the more you summon them, the more you obey their commandments, the more you give allegiance to them. They're growing in power and they're taking bigger and bigger territory. So the best thing is like to kill the head of the snake, because this snake is like Hydra. It's occupying more and more part of Utah. So he was there just on vacation, minding his own business, and now this is happening. Now, the entity tries to scare him and communicate with him after the green light. That's very interesting. It's using technology. Once again, we saw this in so many movies, in so many books, in so many stories. This is very deja vu, right? It's very copy-paste. It's using electronics to scare him and to try to communicate to him. But Dane, as a person of faith, he thankfully did not communicate back to them and did not open the door. Otherwise, this entity could have been coming back the second night, the third night, the fifth night, whatever. And we know that there is an effect called the hitchhiker effect, You can go mind your own business somewhere on vacation. If you open the door so much to an entity that is local, you can take something back, so to speak. We know people who went to just explore the Skinwalker Ranch. Once when they would go back to their own state, to their own town, to their own family, their family would experience so many demonic attacks as if their house would be haunted. So thankfully, this did not happen to Dane as a person of faith. Thank God that God protected him. I think it could have been worse, because he admitted, and I love this, because it's not like, oh, look, I'm a macho man, I'm a man. I'm like, no, he said, no, it made me feel, it didn't make him, comfortable, because he didn't sleep for 2 nights. It was scary. So I appreciate that, and I thank God that nothing further happened. Why? Because he didn't communicate back to that, and didn't invite it in his life and in his room that he was renting from Airbnb. Okay, Tyler, what would be your thoughts, and then we can go with Josh.
Yeah, no, I find it super interesting that, like Sean said, that this happens in Arizona. This just confirms that Arizona is weird. So don't go to Arizona, guys. No, I'm just playing. If you live in Arizona, we love you. but no. So I would ask, and I can't remember just off the top of my head if Dane had mentioned this in the video or not. But my first question just to him would be, have you ever experienced sleep paralysis before, younger? Or older, or just any time in your life? Has that ever been an issue for you, or not? Because you hear so many stories of people experiencing like shadow people. Like he specifically said shadow people in his testimony in his video here, and so that would be the first line of questioning that I would ask, would be around that concept. Another thing is that you hear, and I don't think Dane said he did this or not. If he did, then I stand corrected. But whenever people have like, and this, a lot of this is coming from alien, quote unquote. I'm with you guys. I don't think the alien thing is really aliens that live on a different planet. I think it's demons or angels, probably demons disguising themselves as angels of light, quote unquote, right? To go along with that lie that we've been told now for a few years now. But I rest my case on that. But I would, the interesting thing to me is you hear people starting to talk about, and have been talking about for a while now, that when they say Jesus, the name of Jesus out loud, it does something to these entities. It makes them go away. If the person is feeling scared and they can control what they're, experiencing, it is a real experience. And if they can verbally communicate the name Jesus, it seems to break that cycle. It seems to break whatever is happening to them, and they end up waking up in their room. The entities go away. And so that's becoming more and more common to hear things like that, especially with what people are calling like alien grays. I don't think there's different species, obviously, of aliens, but at the same time, I do think there's a connection, and God rules over all, right? And so it makes perfect sense to me that if you speak their master and they're in rebellion to their master, that would drive them away. So it's just logic at that point. But no, Dane has a super interesting story, and I'd love to talk to him more about it, just to see, how much more we could kind of pull out of him with that experience. But no, super interesting.
Yeah, I think that was pretty neat, honestly. Like, as I was listening, there was a couple of times where my internet broke up a little bit, but I heard pretty much all of the details as far as that goes. The things that stood out to me were definitely the seemingly disembodied, staticky sort of voices and the prominent green light. The staticky voices are things that, in some sense, I can say I've had similar experiences to that, not necessarily in the context of something like what he's describing, but I definitely would be inclined to ask the same question: was there any technology nearby that could be, like capitalized on to create some of these sounds and things like that? Do you happen to have a CB radio in your home? Do you own any walkie-talkies? Do you have one of those click Nextels? Are you a construction worker? Things like that, because those things, radios do have a tendency to pick up rogue signals. And those things can happen pretty sporadically. Not to say that I don't think that what he's saying is true. I think that there are lots of ways to correlate things. Not that my first impulse is to want to be a skeptic necessarily, but just to be fair to the fact that there's lots of stuff that happens. Yeah, baby monitor. Exactly. Lisa said baby monitors. Baby monitors are very conspicuous for this. As a dad, I stopped using a baby monitor because they're creepy, hands down. Like, they're just creepy. I got a video baby monitor. I could see my baby and I could pick up radio signals from the police officers as they would drive by. I don't like that. That's weird. You know, like, I'm looking at my baby and all of a sudden I hear, it's like, what was that? I don't like that. No, we're turning this off now, and I'm going to take the camera off the wall. We're done here, you know?
Yep.
And it's like, I'm not going to wait around to figure out, you know? It's like, I don't like this. We're not using this anymore. And if there's that much interference, then it's not really reliable the way that I want it to be. It should be an isolated signal. But if we can't do that with even something as simple as a simple technology, like one camera, one receiver, they should have an isolated signal that's only for them. But lots of things can interfere with that signal. It's kind of just the nature of the technology as it's made right now, you know? And so that's definitely something that stands out in terms of something like that. The other thing is that it was a distinctly and prominently green light. He's right about the fact that when you see light through your eyelids, you can see it lighting up the texture of your own flesh, and there's a red tint to it, right? Or it's outright red, depending on, you know, how dense your blood is and things like that. It's kind of a genetic question, but having a distinctly green light through a red lens is very difficult because red and green are opposite colors. And when you mix red and green, typically what you get is actually a muddled brownish sort of substance. You don't get a prominent green. And so that's a very interesting additional detail that he added there, because if you have somebody with a green flashlight shine it at your face and the red in your eye doesn't appear partially brown, it's going to be a very, very strange kind of thing, right? And so whatever that light was that he was seeing, because he was genuinely seeing something that prominent, whatever it was, might have not been necessarily messing directly with his retina, if it was in fact a spiritual experience like you guys are talking about. Maybe it's something, and this is something that honestly I don't like to think about because it spooks me a little too much, is being able to manipulate the relevant parts of your sense data through your brain directly rather than through your sense data, that's just terrifying, to be honest with you, in principle. I don't like that idea, and so I don't entertain it for very long, but it's something that haunts my mind a little bit, not gonna lie. But that's the sort of thing that it makes me think of with that, because of the fact that it's a stark and prominent bright green. You wouldn't get a bright color out of mixing red and green. Typically you wouldn't get a bright color at all. Even if it was a very bright light, it would be a very strange tonality, and the hue would be damaged by the fact that you have red in your eyes. So that also stood out to me a lot. That's a very weird detail addition. So
telepathy just
cool
took on
story
a whole
though.
new meaning.
Huh?
I said telepathy just took on a whole new meaning.
Yeah, no, it's uncomfortable.
And if I could just add something, there's a reason that a lot of these spiritual experiences are really prominent in the West and not so much the East. The East is kind of more famous for like ghosts and stuff, but the West is more prominent for these really weird things. And to me, the West is a lot like India or Africa. It's a place that the gospel had never really conquered. There were native peoples practicing pagan religions, and then the U.S. bought it, and we just moved in. And so the world, or those places, had never seen the gospel completely stamp out pagan religions and pagan practices. So, I mean, that's in the West, that's still contested territory.
That's interesting to point out, because there's definitely a presence here. That's for sure. Cosmic Corner, we talk about spiritual realities a lot, but we usually do so under the umbrella of trying to think about it as narrative themes or elements. And when we talk about spirits and how they operate, we often conceptualize them as organizing principles or umbrellas of influence that kind of disperse their consciousness across individuals or something like that. But when you're talking about something that localizes itself and influences a single person in a way that that directly exposes it by their sense data, very unique. It's very different. And so it's not quite the same question, you know. Maybe it's not the same type of thing as what we mean by a spirit in that sense, you know. And so it is a little alarming, you know, to kind of think about that there's this awkward category. But one of the things that we had just talked about on the last episode of Cosmic Corner was being willing to allow for the untamed edges that really you have the boundary of your own ignorance. And if you're not willing to allow that, then ultimately what you're going to do is plug the gaps with your own opinion and then become rigid and inflexible and unteachable about certain things. And so there are parts of reality you kind of just have to be able to say, you know what, I'm not really sure. I don't really know how to think about that yet. Or just be honest and say, I'm not sure I know how to think about that. You know, like I was talking about with the idea of manipulating sense data without going through your sense data, just manipulating the relevant parts of your brain somehow. That terrifies me. I don't know how to think about that, but it's not, doesn't make it go away. You know, as C.S. Lewis would say, it doesn't, if you have to see ghosts, it doesn't help you to disbelieve in them. It just adds the further terror of madness.
Okay, thanks for that input. And we'll be now watching the video. This was about 20 minutes, but I cut out like 7-8 minutes. So my friend here has two creepy reports. And it's funny because in a way, they come close to the time to Tyler's experience. So I thought that's very interesting. I wouldn't even know, but when Tyler started speaking about the timing, like, yeah, that's so funny because my friend saw here in Chicago something funny too. Okay, let's play.
Yes, my name is Cleophas, and I wanted to share two supernatural experiences. One of them was with another person who was a witness, and the other one, I was the only person who witnessed it. So the first experience was on a Friday, beautiful afternoon, Friday, sunny afternoon, May 29, 2009. This was Friday, sunny day, beautiful day, clear sky. My wife and I were in driving north on Western Avenue. At that time, I had a black Acura with a sunroof. And so we're driving north past my old high school, Roberto Clemente, right? So we're driving northbound. We just passed it up, and we're like before North Avenue on Western. And so we're just looking, and actually my wife was the one who looked up to her right side, and she identified it first. Like, she's like, hey, look at that. What is that? And so, you know, I had been a Christian since 2006. And so I had read my Bible, and it just clicked, right? I was like, this is biblical, has to be. So above a third-story floor, like a 3-story building, brick building, right above it, above the roof, maybe like 10 feet, at about a 45-degree angle, is a flying disc. Like, this is crazy. Like, she spotted it first, then she tells me to look up. We're both frozen. I don't have a cell phone to record it. If I did have the cell phone to record it, it's one of those Razor, the old ones that don't have the quality that we have now with the cell phones. So nobody was thinking about like, hey, let me record this. And it happened so fast. But the sky was bright blue and clear. And so it was at hovering with no noise, no sound. You couldn't hear a thing. The highway is to the right to our right. So we're traveling northbound. So the highway was to the right and in front of us, because you know how 9094 cuts at an angle running from the south to northwest. So you could say technically this thing had just passed the highway. And I'm surprised nobody else saw it, but it was right above a 3rd-story floor. Inside the middle of the plates, the 2 silver plates, was a black stone that was kind of like spinning. It seemed like it was like spinning in place. Kind of like when you see the rims on a car, like spinning in place. So that black stone, I used to have a black onyx stone from my graduation. So I knew it was like an onyx stone. I was like, wow. So the center was just like, but it's spinning, but it's making no noise. And it's moving at a 45-degree angle. And so then it starts to like straighten out. and then the inside, that's the black stone, is spinning, and it turns into like a white heat, like a white bright light, kind of like the Sparkies for 4th of July, that you those little spark things, you go like that, like white, bright white, and it's literally started sparkling like that. Literally started sparking like that. So it straightened out, like, so now we're talking, it's parallel to the ground, right? This thing straightened out, and I was like in shock. I'm like, I can't believe I'm looking at it. We've always heard everybody talk about it, and this is the time that I get to see it. So I'm like really, really attentive to the details. I even drew a picture of it, like with a pen, because I used to draw before, so I drew a picture of it. So it straightened out, and then this thing just took off like at light speed. Like all I saw was the light, like sparkling away. You didn't hear no sound, no noise. And mind you, I was in the military in the air wing, so I've seen aircraft before. Okay, I was in Cherry Point, North Carolina. I've seen, F-18s, F-16s, C-130s, jet Harriers. I've seen, and they all make noise. The jet Harriers live vertically. I think those are retired. So I've seen aircraft. I've been on a military base. I know what aircraft look like. This is not a human vehicle, not a human aircraft, not made by human hands, because there was no noise, nothing. And so this thing took off, and all I saw was the light. It just all became like bright white fire, and it took off. Kind of like the fire, like kind of like enfolding in itself. So then I was like, okay, this is like exactly what it reads like in the book of Ezekiel. There's no doubt in my mind that this is what the Bible talks about. Like most people say, it's a UFO, unidentified flying object. Well, if you read your Bible, it identifies what those flying objects are. So then this is interesting, because it was like around in the afternoon, like around 1 o'clock. It was between 12 and 1. And then after we had seen this, then it started to rain like really bad. Then it got cloudy and it started to rain. And it was like super clear skies. And then these clouds came out of nowhere, and then it started raining. I was like, where did these clouds come from? So it turned from like a super sunny day into a super cloudy, rainy day after this event took place. But this was the first event, and this was like, it was very, like, I don't know, it affected me. I drew it out. I feel like it only strengthened my faith. A lot of people, I don't understand. I had already talked to somebody, a family member in Mexico City, and in 1985, there was what they call a UFO sighting, of a bunch of them all over the city. And they were, he said, because he grew up in Mexico City, a family member that from my wife's side. And I had asked them about it before I had actually seen the sighting. Before I had asked him about the 1985 sighting. He said, yeah, I just walk into my backyard. I look up at the sky, and I could see them all over the place in the sky. So in 1995, 85, there was a mass UFO sighting in Mexico City. And you won't find a lot of information about it. But when I used to investigate it back then, I would read about it. And kind of like the 1996 Phoenix lights, slowly but surely the internet starts to like erase these things, but these are facts. But this was in Chicago, right? In 2006, there was an O'Hare sighting, UFO O'Hare sighting, and they even made a movie about it. But I knew somebody who knew somebody who worked at O'Hare, and they witnessed that one at O'Hare. So they worked on the field at O'Hare Airport, and they witnessed the one in 2006 at O'Hare Airport. So I knew somebody.
What's wild? I've interviewed about a year and a half ago one guy who wrote a book on the Lake Michigan Mothman sightings. And there are so many people who witnessed that, saw something like Mothman, not always exactly. It would differ in shape and form, how it would move and stuff like that. It would always be huge, always be like this flying cryptid that would remind of a human person, but it actually would not be of human origin, would have red light, would look ominous, like scary. And also there are people, I've read this also and heard this, that the same airport, O'Hare Airport, had many sightings also of strange phenomena besides Mothman, including UFOs that you said. it's so weird. I never seen them. I'm going to the same airport at least once a year. I never seen anything, but there are people who said, just like you said, they did see something. So we're talking about a number of people, not just one or two people. We're talking about a number of people who've seen this over the years. That's not easy to discard and put it all in garbage. I was wondering also, when it comes to your second story, that one is also very cool. If you Okay, I think we can make a pause here, and if we can dissect this with the UFO thing. Sean, you want to go?
Yeah, I really like what he's talking about with the when he's talking about Ezekiel and the angels. Well, they're not actually angels, but what would broadly be considered angels, as far as that being something that's appearing in the sky, and it's I think it kind of matches well with what he's saying, but I don't know if there's like the ring within the ring and the eyes on the rings and all. I mean, that's what are those, Ophanim or something like that? I don't know if I would necessarily like say, oh, this is an exact match to what he's talking about, but it's interesting to think that could be something angelic. I typically think of everything that we see as UFOs as being more demonic, but most UFO sightings are really anticlimactic. So I don't really understand what their purpose would be in just like showing up and then doing crazy stuff. Like, doesn't really seem to serve any purpose other than maybe adding to the weight of the UFO explanations, alien origin explanation versus, the Christian origin myths.
Yeah, I want to say that I'm going to put in the public chat the link to our most watched episode so far on the channel, Myths, Mysteries, and Majesty, or 3M, with Dr. Hugh Russ. And I want to thank Josh for connecting me with Dr. Hugh Russ's secretary. Because of him, we got to get this interview a couple of years ago. So my interview with Dr. Hugh Russ was on two topics: Genesis 6, right, and the fallen ones, the Watchers, and then the UFOs and the aliens. Dr. Hugh Russ, as a Christian, as a pastor, but also as a scientist, speaks like, why are these entities not some entities from another galaxies? He says how that will be impossible for them even to come here. And then he quotes other scholars, including atheists, to say these are interdimensional beings. Look at their equipment, look how they fly, look at how they can suddenly maneuver, change gear, how can disappear, then appear. In a way, reminds me of those cryptids who have ability to appear and disappear at will, and they can defy the laws of physics. So can these so-called aliens and UFOs. So it's a very interesting episode. It's very scholarly, yet also very biblical and very creepy. So I provided the link here in the chat room in the live chat for people who are interested to watch. And please, if you're not subscribed to the channel, please do. More than that, I'm not sure what else to do, except that I have never witnessed this. There are a number of movies done according to real similar stories. I enjoy those sci-fi movies. One of them was made a couple of years ago, and I think it's titled "No One Is Coming to Save You," or "There's No One Coming to Save You," and it's about alien invasion, when this lady in her hometown is witnessing something just stopping above her house and coming. She hears footsteps in the on the floor above, and as the alien entity coming in her room, and she's trying to escape, then she suddenly finds out that her whole small town is being attacked by different alien spaceships, and they're like killing or possessing one by one of the humans, and she's the only one left. And all these alien entities comes in different shape and forms. Now, yeah, it was a fun movie, a little bit scary too. But let's say, put aliens on a side, put sci-fi on a side. Again, let's go biblical as much as we can, because so much of the information God didn't give to us. But what we can discern with these entities, and again, Sean and I covered alien stories as well on the channel. These entities behave many times like demons. They try to scare you, and if you confront them in the name of Jesus, they disappear. Alien abductions, alien appearing in people's room, they always get repelled in the same way like demons if you mention Jesus Christ. Why would that be interesting, and why would that even work if they're just made of flesh and flesh and blood like us, just entities from different planets and different constellations? So this is very interesting. I again would suggest to people to go and check that episode with Dr. Hugh Russ, who explains this in a very easy way for us to understand, but also very scholarly and scientific way as a man of God. Okay, Tyler, you want to go next?
Yeah, so I'll just say first that you're absolutely right. Dr. Hugh Ross is amazing, and I thank David Russell for connecting us with him, Josh and I, because you're right. He's an absolute delight to interview and super open and super available. I'll put it like that. If he's not busy, like he definitely tries to make time to do interviews with small channels like ours, and so I really want to thank David Russell for that. But no, you're right. I think so with his video, with Cleophas's video and his experience, the thing that stood out to me is the black stone, right? The black onyx stone. Like, I want to know what that is because I've never heard that before. I've never seen. And if I understood him right, was the stone in the disc was kind of like around the stone, or was it more like two discs and the stone was in the middle of them? Which do you guys remember?
That was kind of the impression I got, was that the stone was in the middle.
Okay, that's what I was getting.
Yeah, in the middle and rotating. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So yeah, whenever we interviewed Dr. Ross, he said 99% of the sightings that people see that are reported as UFOs are known things, right? We know what they are. They're either misidentified, the person exaggerates the story, or they make it up, right? But he said there's that 1% that still has me up at night, right? Like, I want to know what this is. I think as a Christian, I know what this is, but to explain this as an astronomer, like, that's what I want to be able to do, and that's what keeps me up at night. And so that's what I think too, like, just hearing some of these. Now, what I'm doing at this point is not talking about like the videos that have been released by like the Navy over the last few years of these, like tic-tac shaped UFOs and things like that. I know everybody's got their own opinion about those videos. I'm not here to debate whether they're real, whether they're fake, whatever. I have my own opinions. And if asked, I'll tell you. But at the same time, I think there are more interesting stories and even more interesting videos, I'll put it like that show something else, that show a supernatural element. And I'm not just talking about going really fast or turning it like, super quick, 90 degrees. The thing that I'm interested in as well is the quote unquote vehicles. Cause I'm like you guys, like I'm 99% sure these are not aliens, right? Speaking from like a probability perspective, in the way that we think about them, but rather, supernatural entities. And so the vehicles, quote unquote, that these entities manifest, and this is what we talked to Dr. Ross about, is that the entity itself? Is that part of it? Is the entity manifesting that to keep up the delusion? Kind of like you guys, I'm sure, have heard of like Project Bluebeam, right? Like where they would send the holographs into the sky to fake like an alien invasion or the second coming of Christ. Is it like that type of thing? Are these entities actually doing this with technology? Or is it more of an illusion and we're being deceived like demons are, really, really good at doing, right? So that's the kind of things that I'm curious about whenever it comes to UFO videos. But for Cleophas's very, very interesting story. And like I said, that black stone is what stood out to me. And I want to know more about that. So with that being said, Nico, I'll turn it back over to you.
Josh, you have any comment before we continue with his second testimony?
Man, I really appreciate his the way he's telling the story is easy to follow. But in my head, what I thought was, well, first, because it stood out to me because it was funny when he was talking about those spinning rims that people used to have, right? When you had the vehicles, that you had those large rims on the sides of the vehicles, and you had the spinners in the middle, and then when they would stop, they would keep rotating. And he said, that's what it reminded me of, this stone rotating in the middle. And I'm like, man, wouldn't it be like hilarious if they're like, somehow there's an alien species hidden in the moon or something, right? They're like hollow earth moon situation. They pop out, and the first thing that they do is they come down and start like, oh, we saw some of your, you know, the videos that you guys are putting out, and they think that humans are like rap videos. And so like that's the picture that I got in my head. That was super funny. And so I just thought that was a good one. People might enjoy that. But as far as his actual story goes, I've not seen a, let's say, a disc like object in the sky, but I have seen strange alignments of light or arrangements of light that seem to be moving at strange angles or at strange speeds, things like that. And this is a little bit harder to discern now because we have technology that can recreate these things with small drones with lights on them and things like that. But when I had experience with something like this, it was probably, I think, like 2012, 2013, something like that. I was driving with my mom and my sister on our way back from Santa Cruz toward the Bay Area, which is about a 2.5-hour drive or so. You have to go through the mountains, and when you go up on top of Santa Cruz mountains, there's not a lot of lights, and it's pretty dark, and you can kind of see the sky pretty well. And there's a part at which you're passing some of the last shops before you go down the mountain, and then it's just a bunch of really windy mountain passes with no buildings, no nothing, and it's just dark, right? And right as we were exiting the area where those shops and things were, before we got to the windy passes where it was all dark, off to the side of the road, and not level with the road, but above it, but about the same distance, seemingly by reference of size, about the same distance from the road as the street lights would be normally, but higher up, like street lights that were way too tall, but street lights that were also arranged almost as if they were stacked on top of each other in some awkward way, right? And it was moving at the same speed as our vehicle. And so something like that. And during that experience, I was the one that noticed it first, pointed it out. My sister saw it, screamed some expletive, and then my mom, because she was drawn by that attention grabber and my sister exclaiming, looked over and saw it, and everybody goes, huh? And then all the lights turn off. And so I've had a very similar, what is that sort of experience of something in the sky in a very similar way. And so his shock, the way he was describing this, like, and it was just this thing, I don't know, I don't understand. You know, like I get that. Like, if you're trying very hard to describe something that even to your own eyes, this is one of the difficult things about seeing things that you don't understand. You can't actually see something until you know roughly what it is. It's very difficult to perceive something if you don't know what it is, like even in principle. And so a lot of the time our brains, because we're creatures that can do that, kind of automatically fill gaps for us. So it's difficult to see something if you don't know what it is. And so that's one of the other layers that kind of makes this sort of experience a tricky thing, is that you don't know, like you just don't know, you know? So it's striking, because the sky is something that, like, it's like the ocean, you know, that's where we expect the monsters to be, because it's the place we don't explore, you know, like we kind of naturally expect the monsters to be there. And so, the monsters we produce, you know, and it just kind of, it would be very advantageous for the devils to produce things that scratch that itch, is all I'm saying.
So, do you think it's possible that the fiery chariots of God all have spinners on their wheels?
My friend mentioned
It's
that
totally
theory. Yeah, he's gonna say this soon in the video. Yeah. Okay, let's continue because he's gonna mention that and then he'll switch to the second testimony, which is way shorter. If you feel like sharing.
Yeah, that one. It's at night. You know, we're sleeping in the middle of the night, and so I'm awake, but I can't move. So my wife, she's there, but she's sleeping, and I'm awake, looking at the ceiling, and I can't move. I'm paralyzed. I'm like, this never happened to me before. What's going on? You know, I'm thinking like, why can't I move? You know? So then I hear these voices in the room on my right side, and I'm trying to like turn my head, but I can't even turn to look at them. And they're talking. They're like, well, they said like, which is this the one? And I can't. I'm like, why am I listening to it in English? Like I thought it would be like in a different language, right? But I mean, I don't know. Maybe God let me understand what they were saying, and I understood like what they were saying is this the one. And but there was obviously at least two of them, maybe more, but they were having a communication between each other. And so this was as soon as I stopped hearing the voices, then I'm trying to pray as I'm paralyzed, as I always do at night. I'm like rebuking in the name of Jesus. And so I told my wife what happened. I explained to her, but like, most people, if you don't, I think if you don't have faith in what, the word of God, then you would explain it as, uh, aliens or demons. These are supernatural beings that are very powerful. They're, I mean, there's good and bad, right? I think the first one that I saw was possibly an angel in the flying vehicle, right? In the what people classify as a UFO. And the reason why it was because it was very subtle, very quiet, very peaceful, and very tranquil. Like it was graceful almost to see it move across the sky. And I think that was to strengthen my faith and understand that these flying vehicles are what the Bible classifies as chariots of fire. So then I understood they're chariots of fire because in the sky they look like a fire in the sky. And chariots, because chariots was a form of transportation, it was also a wheel. So this wheel, when they say wheel in the sky and you see the orb in the sky with like fire, it's obviously what the Bible classifies as a chariot of fire, a form of transportation that you can see obviously turns into fire. I've seen the dark shadows. I haven't seen like the form, but I have seen the dark clouds come over at night and above the room, above the bed.
Yeah, I just want to finish with this by saying that it was very interesting how the words that you discerned, that you heard, they're saying this is the one. So I would just assume biblically you were or still are a threat to them. So by them trying to destabilize you, trying to put you in some sort of fear, so you would feel like paralyzed, you feel threatened. Maybe I shouldn't go too much with this Jesus thing. Maybe I shouldn't read too much. Maybe I shouldn't pray too much. Maybe I shouldn't evangelize too much. Maybe I should be more private with my faith or something like that, because they wouldn't attack just anyone. So for me, that was saying something.
Thank you. No, I think people don't pay attention enough to it, Nick. And I'm glad that you're bringing attention to the issue and exposing it. This is a good thing.
Okay, that was the end of the second testimony of my friend. Any thoughts, Sean?
Yeah, I mean, I called it, right? The chariots of fire with spinning rims on them. And and then him hearing that audible voice of this is the one. It's like when you're working and you're pursuing your life of faith authentically, you are a threat to the demonic, because you are you're operating almost like on the front line of taking back and sanctifying the area around you. By God's grace, you're living out your life authentically, and all of reality can't help but to respond to God's grace working in your life. And so that's just kind of encouraging, that if you're living your life, you're in the Word and you're in prayer, and you're meeting out the good works that are required of believers, then you really are a threat to the demonic. And so they may show up and be like, yeah, that's him. That's the one. This is Timothy right here. We got to take him out. And so, yeah, I kind of like that idea. What was the C.S. Lewis quote? That, I hope all of hell rejoices when I die, because they know I'm out of the fight. I don't necessarily think at that point you're out of the fight. I think that you just kind of get up to a higher level. But I would appreciate that if all of hell threw a party when I died, because I was out of the fight.
You thought the angels rejoiced, Sean, when you got saved. You'll see rejoice in hell when you die.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be brief because I know that we'll be finishing in 10 minutes or so. And I also want to have a very quick concluding segment. I want to say that I've been knowing Cleophas or Cleo for, I don't know, maybe 10 years. He's the guy who helped me volunteer bring this table that was given to me from my former manager at work, and that I've put here in my YouTube room. He's the one who helped me install mic and everything. I'm not really a handy person. He's the one who volunteered, and the only one who was able, we use his car to bring all this material 10 miles from my work here, take it to the third floor, no elevator, carrying everything up and then assembling. So he was there also when the channel was beginning, even though I don't even think he watches this, right? He's been always on fire for God. He's a great evangelist. So him being attacked, I'm not surprised. And I also want to say but I'll save this in the sequel that hopefully 4 of us will do in a month or 2 or 3. I also want to say that what he experienced, I also experienced this when I had sleep paralysis, and it happened just after I became a Christian, almost 25 years ago. And it happened back in Europe, right? It happened in my room when I couldn't move. I didn't hear anything. I didn't see anything. I was almost feeling or assuming there's like dark entity, or at least one floating there or being there. I remember I was so scared that I wanted to call my dad for help. But it's one of those events that you read online or hear from others where you absolutely have no control over your body. The only thing you can move is your eyes. That's it. You can't talk, you can't run, you can nothing. What can you do? Just like Cleo, you can pray in yourself and command these entities to be gone. And after, I can't even determine what time was gone, maybe a minute, maybe 2, maybe 3. But in those moments, every second seems too long because you're scared, you're helpless, can't do anything. And then after that, suddenly my body control came back to me. I retained a full body control after that. And few times after that in my life, I also felt sleep paralysis. And I noticed it usually would happen if I would sleep on the back. And it also happened to Cleo in that shape and form. I think, and I know actually, when I Googled this, medical doctors do have expression for this, and they say that this is not that much weird or strange or scary. But for us who believe that there is spiritual background behind this, we'll be like, well, it can be medical, but many people witness not just being paralyzed, they would feel or see something. And again, Sean and I covered a few stories in our eerie encounter segment on the podcast, where people would be actually touched by a cold hand, or something would sit on them, or they would see also bed going down as some heavy presence would be with them on bed, even though they wouldn't be able to see anything. Thank God I didn't witness that, but things like this happen to people. Okay, who want to go next?
Don't everybody jump at the same time, guys. Jeez.
I think Tyler's next, and then Josh.
I'll just say that, you know, everything that we've talked about tonight has been, you know, super refreshing for me, just to be able to kind of come in vulnerable, right? Not prepared for anything really, just to talk with you guys and chat. It's been really, really fun, and I appreciate the invite on. I think if anything that people listening should take away from this episode, if it's not just for entertainment purposes only, right? Because I think we can all agree what we're talking about is real, and I'm gonna leave that term ambiguous just for in the spirit of myth, mysteries, and majesty. We'll leave it vague and ambiguous for now, but what we're talking about is real. And so you play a part in this fight that we've been discussing, in this, whether or not we're experiencing natural things or whether or not we're experiencing supernatural things, there's still a fight going on between those two worlds. And so with whatever comes with war, deception, casualties, all of these different things, you, and I'm talking to each and every person watching and the host here on an individual basis, including myself, you are part of that fight. And so you pick your side and you fight like you've never fought before, because it truly is a fight for your life. So if if anybody takes anything away from this video, take that, is that you matter, you're valuable, and there are two different sides after your soul. What are you going to do with that? And so if you have a talent, I guess, let's say, or a gift to sense supernatural things, because I know we talk to people about that, and we talk to people who are like that, then great for you. Use that. If you don't, and you're more of a tangible, physical person, right, that interacts in the tangible and physical realm, do that. Do what you were born to do. And I think, you know, people will come away a lot better off at the end. I always try at the end of Faith Unaltered episodes to really put a good practical message and a thing to people to put, you know, into practice after they watch the video, after they come, they learn, and they get to chill and hang out with us for a little bit. You know, what can I do after this? That's what you can do now, is to be a good fighter, and just keep praying. I ask for people to pray for me and my family. Obviously, if you're a follower of Faith Unaltered, you know what's going on there. I kind of dropped everything on everybody's lap in the last episode. So if you don't know what I'm talking about and you're interested, go check out our most recent video with me in it, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. It's been a spiritual fight here with me and my family. We have been at war with Satan over the last couple of months, and my wife and I have been at war with each other over the last couple of years, really. And things are getting better, though. Things are a lot better. We actually had a kid-free night this Friday night, and it was absolutely amazing. I needed that with my wife, just to be able to just chill and just, you know, just to be able to be husband and wife. I mean, that was fantastic. But I appreciate, Nico, you having me on. I won't take up any more time, but all I ask is followers and viewers of 3M, please continue to pray for us. If you're not subscribed to Faith Unaltered, we're welcoming everybody. You'll definitely find a spot there, because we take everybody in. And so feel free. And if you're Faith Unaltered viewers, thank you for watching this. Go subscribe to 3M. Nico's amazing, and he has some awesome channels. Sean, now I keep saying Nico. Sean, you're co-host of 3M now, right? Is that a fact? Okay. I apologize, brother. So Nico and Sean, definitely go subscribe to these guys. Sean, you're actually helping me on a side project that we haven't quite started. I've let you know what's going on, but I plan on getting you guys more involved in that here very, very soon, once I get some more things figured out, and we're going to be releasing some stuff there. But yeah, subscribe to Nico's channel, because 3M's awesome. And like I said, I appreciate you guys having me on.
The link is in the description on the Faith Unaltered video. Click the description and you can find 3M linked there. Just click on there and subscribe.
Well, if no one else has final thoughts, I'll just do a quick concluding segment. First, I want to thank all of you being here, you, Sean, because I usually try not to bother you more once a week. But I'm like, dude, you have to come. Like, Tyler will be here, Josh will be here. We don't have to study anything. We don't have to go through many books. It will be so easygoing. It will be smooth and it will be fun. So he said, yeah. And Kyle was like, yes. And then Josh, like I said, I didn't have you for like a year. And Tyler was there like episode 3 probably when I was starting this a little over 2 years ago. It was a collab with you guys. David Russell was there. I was there. It's like, I don't know, 5 or 6 of us. And I was like, and this was after 2 years coming back with Tyler. So I'm honest when I'm saying this. I really enjoyed this episode. I really enjoyed this collab. And I have a proposal. It's going live. And you can't say no. I'm not asking you to sign it with your blood, but if you say yes, that's already almost like a signed contract. I would propose that 4 of us, and sometimes we can have some annoying other 5th person like Amber or someone else. I don't know. We'll see who that would be. We can, but this should be the core. We should do a collab like this once every couple of months. We can continue talking about spooky things and cryptids and spiritual warfare and aliens and all of these things, but we can also extend and expand our ideas, our topics, sources. I have way more books than that can fit here that you can guys see. So it's like I have in our 3M Google Doc shared file over 100 of topics I want to research. I'm not joking. I always find out more because I'm always reading some articles, investigating topics, and I hear from others. I'm like, okay, let me write it down because I'll forget. So please, brothers, once when I'm back from my Euro vacation, let's do another collab back in in August, if that's fine with you too, with Josh and Tyler. And yeah, I just want to thank once again for all of you. I also want to thank everyone coming from your channel. Again, I'm sorry for bothering you, but if you're a member of Faith Unaltered, amazing podcast, please subscribe also to our podcast. It doesn't cost you anything, but it helps us so much and encourages us to continue making videos and to keep studying hard, because this is not regular Friday episode. Usually I invite scholars, book authors, theologians, pastors, priests, and I study one or sometimes even more than one book for our Sunday episodes. So it costs me a lot, but I enjoy. I'm not asking for you to donate money. That's up to you. But at least subscribe, like, and share our videos with anyone out there to help us promote, get more clicks, number of views, and subscribers. I also want to say that Sean and I will be back this Friday with another interesting episode. And Sunday, Carrie and Dane, the same guy whom you saw the video, is coming, and we'll be discussing about a very interesting topic that unfortunately may be controversial to people who are uber conservative Christians. And the topic is, could there be a biblical argument, an extra biblical argument to be made about any pre-Adamic race or any human race that would exist outside of Garden of Eden back in the times of Adam and Eve, especially if we focus on Genesis 4. So I don't want to share too much, but I have 3 or 4 books I'm dissecting and reading and writing outline for this. Carrie will bring her sources. Dane will bring his sources. It will be one of those biblical theology episodes that require a lot of us to prepare. We do it gladly. So please subscribe and like if you can, and we'll see you Friday and Sunday. Again, thank all of you, and may God bless you. And I hope this episode encouraged you in a way to be faithful to God. If you fail, repent and go back to Him. Be productive, like Tyler said. Use your gifts, your skills to bless the body in your local congregation, your neighborhood. Maybe you want to start something that will bless others, like your art, spoken word, Christian music, or maybe a podcast if that's on your heart. Pray about it and be productive, because the time is short and Jesus is coming. God bless.